I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join us for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody. We're going to start by making a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I so move.
I'll second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. The agenda is approved. Next, we're going to move on to open forum. And I see that there's some folks signed up, and perhaps this is the first time you've spoken to the school board. So I'm going to just take a minute to go over the guidelines and etiquette for addressing the school board, so we're all on the same page about that. So open forum is the time for the school board to listen. If action is needed on what you have to say, the board will direct your concerns to those that are best able to deal with them, or will place your concern on a future agenda. So you don't deal with your issue necessarily at the same meeting that you brought it up. A couple things to keep in mind, we limit presentations to about 3 minutes, and you can speak on any topic as long as it does not violate data privacy and does not slander anyone. Couple guidelines to keep in mind. One person will speak at a time. When that person is speaking, we'll all give them our attention. I'm going to ask you please not to interrupt or speak out when someone else is speaking. Data privacy issues, allegations of misconduct, which could be considered libelous or slanderous, shall not be discussed in public. And persons will not be allowed to speak if they violate the state or federal laws. Personal attacks are unacceptable. Or your right to speak will be terminated. Now, the 3 minutes, I'm not going to stop you mid-sentence. We want to hear what you've come here to say, but I'll let you know if you're at the 3-minute mark so you can just finish up your remarks and we can end it there, okay? So please try to keep your comments general in nature, like what your expectations are, what your issues are, without directly attacking anyone. All right, with that, our first person signed up is Corey Spencer.
I want to take an opportunity to offer to my fellow board members, the staff of Chisago Lake Schools, and our families and community members an explanation of recent events. I was made aware that accusations were made against me regarding inappropriate communication between myself and students. The accusations were not of a criminal nature. An investigation by the school district ensued and I fully cooperated. Because of data privacy laws, the school district cannot release the findings of the investigation. I, however, can. In an effort to maintain the public's trust in the school district and in me as a school board member, I'm willing to show transparency regarding this incident. It has been determined that I have violated district policies regarding excessive social contact between staff and students, and also transporting students in a non-authorized personal vehicle. At this time, I have been excused from substitute teaching and all other paid or volunteer services to the school district. My status as a school board member remains unchanged until such action by the board as a whole is made. Actions on my part have only ever been intended to help and support kids. I would never do anything to compromise that.
Thanks, Corey. The next person is Taryn Lappy. I hope I'm pronouncing that okay.
Yes, that's actually correct.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Taryn Lappy. I know many people in our community have heard my name, seen my face, and have watched my videos. I know this because I have heard of the email to staff stating that my videos are not to be discussed between staff and students if it's brought to their attention. Now, before you tune me out thinking I'm only here to cause problems, please know I am not. I could very easily start talking about my own problems within this district, but rather I am here to talk about problems for others tonight. Problems that I was asked to bring light to others more in our community. Problems that should have never been brushed aside for as many years as they have been. These issues have been brought up to higher ups for many years and have never been, and nothing was ever done. But why? Many students I have personally talked to are getting marked truant and having to go to court for missing school. Why? Well, I've gotten the same answers amongst them. I don't feel safe, my mental health is deteriorating and the school's making it worse. I feel targeted by staff members, or even I don't want to face the people causing the pain. How are students supposed to come to the school that makes them feel unsafe, uncomfortable, physically and mentally sick, or even students being bullied by staff to the point where they feel they have no choice but to transfer to online in order to finish out their high school career? How are students, especially the female students, supposed to feel protected when a man of a much higher rank than just a staff member is allowed to be such a huge part of our district and community? Schools are supposed to be a safe place for kids, a place where they can trust their teachers, staff, and safety of the environment around them. How is that supposed to be when someone is jeopardizing and targeting for their own sexual preferences? When are things going to be safe again? If it's supposed to be an internal investigation, how does that work when the person being investigated is part of the group that determines what happens and whether or not what he did was wrong or not? The female students have been scared and targeted long enough. When are the actual actions going to be taken against the years and years of these allegations that have been going and previously been made about this? When is an adult going to take responsibility for their actions like they expect us children to do? I know these are only quote unquote allegations, but with the amount of people that have come forward and the amount of text I've seen and the amount of proof in general, when will it stop? I was always taught that if an adult makes you uncomfortable about their words or actions, to say something. If an adult, regardless of their title, might ever ask me to send them pictures or ask if males were around them, or even better, ask who I was with or where I was, or anything other like that question, I would bring it to someone else's attention. A parent, another adult, or dare I say, a police officer. That's what I'm here to do right now. I'm here to speak for those who are ignored and to tell an adult what he did is not okay. It made us all uncomfortable. Do not let someone get away with something just because of their position when we all know if it was any one of the rest of the adults out there, they would be paying the price and being served consequences. I'm asking that you as adults, please do what is right. We need you.
Thanks, Taryn. Next up is Wyatt Johnson.
Hello everyone, my name is Wyatt Johnson and I'm a senior at Chisago Lake High. Today in school I was in class and I was informed that young Smith items were brought into school premises. Today in class, among my other classmates, we learned that our school was about to be turned into a statistic you see on the 9 p.m. news. The same news I watch and shake my head wondering how could these things happen all over the country way too often. Students could have gotten injured or worse. The student was pulled out of the class, the items were found, what was done for our protection, we were put in a stop lock. The class kept going on, they had no idea if others were involved, they had no idea if there was any other students sitting in class, or if they had anything else in their backpacks as well. These events were more likely happening due to bullying. I have seen a student bullied firsthand and nothing has been done about it. The bullying has been happening in our district for years and nothing is ever done. School and staff claim to have zero tolerance for it, but yet nobody ever follows through with helping these students. Have any of you ever been bullied relentlessly to the point where it literally takes a toll on your mental and physical health? I have been bullied by not only numerous students for something I have no control of, but by staff by one of our schools. How is this in any way, shape, or form okay? We need to be doing more to help. We need more resources that are actually available. We need adults that are starting to take this seriously. Every year there are 4,400 deaths per year by suicide, by bullying, 20% of all suicides. 1 in every 5 students reported in bullying in the schools each year. Our district should have not ignored these things to the point where we all become presenters. Did you also know that school shootings each year take 60% of them that were reported prior to the shooting as bullying? This shows that those students reached out and were failed by the system. We have way too much already going on in our district, in our lives, with our students and staff, to not being listened to or heard to about things not being dealt with when they should be. Let's not make the mistake of letting more students slip between the cracks. Let's get on board with helping these students have a fair chance in life. We're reaching out and we need to reach back.
Thank you, Wyatt. Ashley Newman.
I am Ashley Newman. I come today as a concerned parent. I have 2 daughters in the school district. My eldest daughter is 14 and an 8th grade student at Chisago Lakes Middle School. My younger daughter is 5 and a kindergarten student at primary. We've lived in the district since 2017. Up until this school year, we have been happy to be a part of this district. Unfortunately, this year's been a difficult one. My eldest daughter was a victim of inappropriate contact by a substitute teacher, board member, and local police officer serving our community. Over the course of several months, this person was having conversations with my daughter on the social media app Snapchat. In those conversations, the board member, substitute teacher, police officer calls her pretty, invites her to his home, requests pictures of her, and inquires about her whereabouts and who she is with and what she is doing. In addition to the social media contacts, the person also took my daughter, without my permission, in his personal vehicle to Starbucks. While she was working under him at the hockey arena, he would give her free food, hug her, rub her back and shoulders, which made her uncomfortable. Upon showing the messages to one of her friends brought it to their parents and they brought it to the police. We were asked by Chisago County Sheriff's Office and the LAPD to meet with them for an interview in which my daughter showed them the screenshots of the messages between the board member and my child. She also recounted the trip to Starbucks and the unwanted touching. The middle school principal, SRO, the Chisago County Sheriff's detective, and the LAPD chief of police were in attendance. With this information, they launched investigations. According to Chief Schoenbaum, the Chisago County Sheriff's Office has finished their investigation and no criminal charges have or will be filed, as they concluded there was no criminal activity. Lakes Area Police Department is still in the process of their internal investigation, and the investigation is in regards to the policies of the police department. According to Superintendent Dean Jennison, Chisago Lakes District has completed their internal investigation. The complaint is now closed. Under the Minnesota Government Privacy Practices Act, he states they are unable to share any further information. Corey did give that information. Chisago Lakes District has a code of conduct for all district employees. Code 423 details employee and student relationships. The purpose of the code states that the school district is committed to an educational environment in which all students are treated with respect and dignity. Every school district employee is to provide students with appropriate guidance, understanding, and direction while maintaining a standard of professionalism and acting within accepted standards of conduct. This policy applies to all district employees at all times, whether on or off duty or on or off school property. Under Section 2, Part F reads, school district employees shall, whenever possible, employ safeguards against improper relationships with students and or claims of improper relationships. Part G goes on to read excessive informal and social involvement, including social media with individual students or groups of students, is unprofessional, is not compatible with employee-student relationships, and is inappropriate. The district clearly outlines the code of conduct for employee and student relationships, and this board member went against that policy. Is this somebody we want to continue on our school board? Based on the concerns, I filed for a harassment restraining order against this board member, and the harassment restraining order was granted by Chisago County Courts on April 18th. This order legally prohibits the board member from contacting my daughter directly, indirectly, in person, electronically, from being on the middle school property, or from being within 2 blocks of our home. With all this said, I request the board reconsider the position of Corey Spencer.
Thank you, Ashley.
For board members, if they need the screenshots of what was sent. Thank you.
Last, we have Amanda Bushweiler.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Bushweiler, and I'm just here to speak on behalf of my friend Corey Spencer. We've been pretty quiet with this matter. As most of you can understand, we lost our son a couple months ago, so we've been grieving that, and really haven't had a whole lot of input or feedback on what's been happening with our friend. I can understand how this looks from an outside perspective. If I didn't know Corey as well as I do, I would certainly have questions. But I do know Corey. I know the way he relates to these kids and how many of them consider him a friend versus just a coach or teacher or an officer. Ultimately, I can't speak to what has been going on, but I can speak to what I've witnessed with my best friend in my own life, in my home. Corey is not only the most servant-hearted person I know, but he is almost the most caring and considerate to a fault. When Corey comes over to my home, my children are genuinely excited to see him. When he pulls up in a parking lot or a neighborhood, all the children flock over and say hi or give him a hug or a high five. There are numerous kids that Corey has brought to Starbucks, to candy stores, to any event that they want to go to, because that is who he is, that is what he does. almost always these, I think every time that I have had experience with this, it has been in group settings. I urge you all to not jump to conclusions with this. I urge you to take a moment to consider that maybe you got this one wrong and that this is just a man with a giant heart, the heart of a kid who maybe didn't consider how reaching out on Snapchat didn't exactly translate right. Please don't ruin my friend's life over this misunderstanding. I also want to make it clear that my son's suicide had nothing to do with bullying and nothing to do with Corey Spencer. I know that those have been some rumors going around, and I am not confident in much, but I am 100% confident in that.
Thank you, Amanda. As I said, it's an emotional night. Thank you for those of you brave enough to speak. We heard you. We'll consider whether we need to add something to agenda or move this to people who need to deal with some of these issues. But thank you for being here. We're going to move on with the business of the school board for tonight. We'll go to communications. Our Director of Business Services is up next. Robin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. What I have in front of you tonight is the March finance report. Pretty usual and customary. This is still the preliminary budget that I'm showing you here. I will be presenting a revised budget to you later tonight. What we've got is our revenues and expenditures in the general fund are right in line. Our expenditures are a little high again, we due to the capital and LTFM projects that were completed over the summer, they're showing high there. And then food service, our revenues are a little lower, but our expenditures are right in line there. That'll even out again with the revised budget. The community ed are just a positive thing. Our revenue is much higher than we anticipated, but our expenditures are also higher there as well. Our debt service, we won't have any more expenditures or any more revenue coming in the debt service fund. That's all I have right now. Like I said, I'll be presenting a revised budget later on in the meeting, but if anyone has any questions on this one right now, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Any questions for Robin? Thank you, Robin. Okay, we have some enrollment figures, and I assume they're just for our information unless someone wants to speak to those directly. No, okay. Our student reps are here. Welcome. Is there any updates you guys would like to give today?
So the ACT was yesterday. I'm a senior, so I can't really speak to how well that went, but did you take it? I did take it. It went pretty well, I guess.
Well, when you say when the ACT goes pretty well, that's a good thing.
For a 4.5-hour test, there's okay.
Yeah. Just glad to be done with it, I assume. Yeah.
We also have prom coming up next weekend. Famous Midnights. It's in St. Croix. I don't remember the name of the venue. It's Big Rock Creek. I think I remember.
Yep.
So student council is working very, very, very hard at putting this all together. And we have a couple of people within the council that are working like harder than everybody else, which we're very thankful. And they're staying after school to put stuff up. And it's really thankful for everybody on there.
Can I ask you again, what was the theme? I didn't hear you.
Midnights.
Midnights.
Yeah, or midnight. Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
We also have a spring play, which I think is called the Alibis. And the shows are tomorrow at 7, the 22nd at 7, and then the 23rd at 2 o'clock. So if you want to go to that, that would be awesome. Show some support. Then we also have 12 speech kids who are going to state on the speech team. So that's very exciting. I think they only have 17 members. A majority of them are going to state.
Oh, wow, that's quite an accomplishment. That's fun.
And then, okay. And then I think our spring sports are going really, really well.
Good.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I'm not in any sports.
Well, our softball coach is complaining about the weather, but
They're going great because no one has played.
Woo! Okay. It was added. The have a Google Doc every month where we put stuff in there, and I think she put that in there. So I just was reporting what she
Back then, that was when we had that 84 degrees.
Yeah.
With that.
last week they were going.
There you go.
Thank you. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that was pretty much it. All I could say was, hopefully it gets warmer so the sports can actually play outside. It's cool.
We feel the very same way, so thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that, you guys. All right. We're moving on to board committee reports. Does anyone have committee reports to give?
Yeah, SCRED, Nicole Woodward is gonna be our new executive director. So that's a big change. I'm sure many of you know who she is. It sounds like she's been with SCRED for 10 years. Currently in her role, I believe she's the, director of special ed. Thank you. So that's big news up in SCRED. So it sounds like she's gonna do a fantastic job up there. And I also was at ECMEC with Dean and doing some really cool stuff. Probably the best thing I heard, which isn't necessarily great for our district, but for the districts north here, they're getting better internet. And I long for the day that we can get better internet in our area. So I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share, but.
Yeah, no, our partnership with ECMEC, that's a technology consortium that we work with. And one of the big things for them, obviously, recently, and everybody else involved in tech, is cybersecurity. So that's a big part that we count on them for as well. And they do a great job of supporting that along with our staff here. And they continue to do it at great value. And they've been adding additional partial members or members, which brings down the cost of all the members of that organization too, which has been really good. They have a strong executive director in Mark Johnson, and they do a great job up there. So it's a good meeting, and we do 2 meetings a year. So they give us their kind of final report for the year.
Thanks, Josh.
I did have a Taylor Stall's parent-teacher meeting. The one thing I wanted to, a lot of times they try to partner with a business in town to fundraise. And Taylor Falls is now partnering with Schaefer Saloon. So if you go there on the last Monday of the month and say you represent, Cheryl's back there. You can fill in if I'm not.
I'm going on Monday.
I think I would be there.
Be there.
So they give a percentage back to TF for that.
For any food or?
Yeah, I think you just gotta say it's for TF, don't they? Yeah. And they talked about teacher appreciation, but there's some teachers in the room, so we can't talk about it.
Oh, it's a secret. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other committee reports?
I did get the opportunity to visit the primary school when they had kindergarten registration day. So welcome to the class of 2036. That doesn't make you feel old. It was wonderful. There was very excited children. There was a few tears, but
Yes, there's always tears that day. Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah.
Did you want to speak to the finance committee?
We have finance advisory too.
And finance?
You're right.
I mean, I can speak to the fact that we are starting to put together some things to talk about now that our levy has failed. Where are we at? What do we need? How is it going to look going forward without a levy in place and some of those things? So some of our directors have put together their needs and the costs associated with it and so on. And in May, we've set a working session so we can put all of that data together and decide where we need to head with that next. Anything else that anyone would add about that?
We did have a advisory. I'm trying to find my notes.
That's the community group that meets.
That's the community group, and I'd like to put out there, if anyone wants to join that, we're looking for people. It basically gives you, Robin does a great job of putting up the finances out there and explain what the district is going through and what we're looking at. So if anyone has any interest in that, please contact me or Robin, and you're more than welcome to come to our meetings if you'd like more information on that. We want the public and the community input. We just can't get the community to come and give input.
We're gonna put a survey out too.
Okay, sure.
Michelle's helping me put a survey together out and get more people interested in that.
And I was at an insurance meeting with several people in here, and that's always, I'm part of that group too as a retired teacher, so it's very interested. I'm very interested in the effects of that. So there's several things, but we had a fairly long and intense and detailed meeting. But one of the biggest things I think what came up was being self-insured. And the concept that no matter what, whether you're part of a group or you're self-insured, kind of your own group amongst yourself, is that whatever your usage is, you're gonna pay for it one way or another. The issue of being self-insured that I think we're gonna be looking into more is that you don't pay too much to the company that that's representing you, and you kind of kitty it, and you're going to be paying, that extra money kind of goes to help offset other usage later. So there was a lot of information on our monthly use, how much we use, and then kind of looking ahead as we go out for bids this spring.
Well, no, in the fall.
In the fall,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So we're kind of looking at a new idea with self-insured. I'll just put it out there because I think you're gonna wanna do the best you can to inform yourself of what that means. So I was kind of excited about the opportunity for that and what that means for our employees. Instead of making maybe an insurance company rich, we try to take that extra money that we don't use for premiums and kind of bank it and take care of our own group that's all under the insurance of the district. But if you want more explanation, you can certainly seek me out. I'd be happy to explain a little bit more about it.
Are there any other committee reports before we move on to the superintendent update? Okay, we're on the superintendent update. Dean?
Yeah, well, one thing that I hadn't planned on updating tonight on was the incident that happened at the high school today. So we did have a situation where right at the beginning of the day, we were made aware of a threatening message that administration received. We were in a position where you had to make some decisions quickly. So when we say we went into a soft lockdown, that's what was communicated to our high school families. And what that means is basically a modified security kind of environment where we can continue instruction, but we really monitor closely what's happening within that environment while we track down what the threatening message was. As it was said this morning, there was at no time were we in any danger at the high school related to that message. But we needed to figure out what was happening, and we didn't have a lot of time to do that. And so everyone was already there, and so we had to make some quick decisions to secure the building more so than we normally would, and on a daily basis. We are a very secure building. I won't get into all the specifics of what happens in a modified lockdown, because part of that is for the administration and the staff at the school to be able to enact what happens in a security situation. We take all of those threats seriously, we react quickly, and we train effectively throughout the year and in the summer in particular with our law enforcement partners. So we work closely with LAPD. We employ 2 school resource officers in our buildings, and so they help us with situations like that. We work with the Chisago County Sheriff's Department. Just today, prior to all of this, and in the last couple weeks, we've been working with the Sheriff's Department and LAPD to set up our annual training that we'll do this summer with them to go through situations like this. And are we doing the things that are most current in the law enforcement world in terms of keeping all of our environments safe? So today was another opportunity, unfortunately, where we had to react quickly and rely upon our training and our instincts to secure our building, and we did. And so we do appreciate that people have been patient as we've worked through this, and people want to know more. They want to know the specific nature of the threat, our message, and those types of things. And we don't release that information for the purpose of really working through it and doing an investigation. Our first and foremost priority is to make sure we're secure in our areas, so we did do that. And like I said, we will continue to keep our practice and our training up to date, and continue to take every threat seriously as we did in this case. So that's kind of the hard thing. We weren't expecting to do that today, but as one of our students indicated, this is a different world that we live in, and we're continuing to pay attention to that and respond in ways that keep us safe. As far as other things that are going on, this is a time of year that it's all about celebrations based upon the collaboration we've done throughout the year. And so this coming week is Admin Professionals Week at the schools, where we honor those who work in our front offices and support the work of our administration, our teachers, and support staff. And so we'll be honoring them. We do have Teacher Appreciation Week coming up. We have Nurse Appreciation coming up. We have Speech Language Pathologist Appreciation coming up. We have those different opportunities where we get to recognize wonderful staff within our school community. It's also the time that, as the students mentioned, we talk about prom. We have the musicals coming up here We have music events, outdoor jazz concert is always a highlight, awards program, scholarship program, where students are receiving scholarships for all the wonderful things they've done. And of course, again, this year we're looking forward to an outdoor commencement, and hopefully the weather will cooperate with that for us to have that great event, which culminates 13 years of hard work by students and their families and their teachers and their support staff, getting to that point where they get a chance to turn their tassels. And that's what we do this for. So we're excited, right, Anna? Yeah, it's coming quick. So, but there's some other kind of interesting things coming up to be aware of, and that we do have for our staff. People might not know this, but we own 80 acres up in Taylor's Falls called the Bryant Environmental Center. And that is an underutilized space within our school district boundaries where we would like to get more opportunity to get staff and students out there doing things. So we are going to go on a little wellness hike on Tuesday evening if the weather holds as a staff, and we're going to tromp through the woods and think about possibilities of how we could make this space an opportunity for kids and staff to learn together. We've used it in the past for various things, but it's time to kind of refresh the idea of what's out there on those 80 acres. And so we're looking forward to that. We also have a community symposium coming up that, again, is that collaboration between law enforcement and other entities and ourselves. We're having a presentation on May 10th. There'll be a community symposium that we invite the entire community to come to. The topics that night will be sextortion, drugs and vaping, and mental health, all things that have been front and center in our world, and an opportunity for people to come to one session or rotate through all 3 sessions. And so we look forward to many from the community coming and learning from experts in those fields about how we can support our students, our staff, our community, our families in that way. We also have a fun event coming up on May 17th. If you like to read and you have a nice comfy chair, we are going to have a Reading Under the Stars night at our Wildcat Stadium coming up on May 17th. Again, as the weather holds, from 6 to 8:30 p.m., students, children, families, staff, community members of all ages are welcome to come out to the stadium and bring a book and bring a chair, and we're going to sit out there and we're going to read under the stars. So that will be kind of fun as we as a district continue to focus on literacy as being a really, really important goal for us to make sure that our students are reading at grade level by grade 3, and throughout their school experience, we really focus on that ability to read and comprehend and write and speak information. This is a huge, I guess, support for literacy, and we want to invite everyone to come out. So some really fun things mixed in with all the other fun things that we do that are pretty traditional. Also, as was mentioned, spring activities haven't been able to spring much yet, but they're gonna jump into it, probably playing many games and many activities as soon as we get good weather. And also, if you've noticed too, our Wildcat Community Center has just been a beehive of activity, and we really appreciate that. Our pool is being used much more, and we're getting lots of lessons and birthday parties and things. That's been really, really great too. And finally, I'll wrap up with, as we wrap up this school year, we are looking forward to planning for the next school year. So we're putting things in place already for teacher in-service and for new staff training and that collaboration with law enforcement, like I mentioned. So it's still really, really busy. But again, this is the time of year that we really celebrate with our students and our staff, all that's been accomplished together, along with their families. So please come join us for commencement as well. It's the culmination of all that effort. So that's all I've got, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Dean? Okay, the last thing I'd like to mention under communications is everyone has this sitting before, or the board has this sitting before them. It's our invitation to attend high school commencement. So for those of you that are new on the board, we do attend at commencement. We actually get to hand out diplomas. It's one of my favorite parts about being on the school board. For those folks who worked for 13 years to earn that diploma, it's an exciting night. So we're going to try to have it outside if the weather permits. And school board members need to get there a little bit early. We walk out together and so on. So if you have any questions about that, you can certainly ask. And you only have to let them know if you're not going to be able to attend. So that's what that's about. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. That includes claims and accounts, personnel items, some leave requests, some resignations, and some extracurricular agreements. We're going to take it as a whole, so eventually we need a motion.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, there are 2 contracts that have they been removed already? Or
Yeah, it looks like they're removed
pulled
and they're
out.
separate.
On your appendix, yeah.
Yep, we have 2 board members who actually do some work for the district, which is allowable, but we pulled their contracts out, and we'll vote on those separately.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, so we'll take these separately. So we have Brenda Carlson, who's our head softball coach. You can see her contract there. We'll need a motion and a second to approve Brenda's contract to coach.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to accept Brenda Carlson's softball head coach.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign.
I'm going to abstain.
Brenda's abstaining. Now we have a contract for Jeff Lindeman. He's our trap shooting advisor. So we need a motion and a second to accept.
I'll make
his.
the motion to accept.
I'll second.
We need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. And just for the public out there,
And I abstain.
There you go.
Jeff abstains. Sorry, I cut you off.
It's a culture.
School board members are allowed to work for the school district in certain capacities, but the legislature sets an income limit. So for example, I sub, or I sometimes take maternity leaves for teachers because I'm a certified teacher. But you can only make what the legislature sets as the limit for the income, and currently it's $20,000. So any of us can work for the school district as long as we make under $20,000, just in case you were wondering. It always used to be $8,000 and it just changed this year, so. All right, so those are the contracts. We're on to new business. We have an updated budget presentation. Our Director of Business Services, Robin Vosper-Torreson, will take us through that.
I will, and it's not on your board book right now. I didn't get it on there, so we're gonna have to follow along on the
Okay.
The boards. So last June, the board approved a preliminary fiscal year 23 budget. And so what I have for you tonight is a revised budget for FY 23. Our original budgets are always built on assumptions and estimates. I think the board realizes that. And our revised budget is an opportunity for us to bring those estimates closer to actual. So the four funds I have for you tonight for approval are the food service fund, which obviously is lunch and breakfast. I think that one's pretty obvious. Our community service fund, which is community ed, early childhood family education, preschool, and our WCC. Our debt service fund, which is our debt revenue and payments. And then our general fund, which is our largest fund, the one we talk about the most. So I will be giving you a much more comprehensive presentation on all the funds and budgets in June when I present a fiscal year 24 budget. This one will be just a pretty quick overview on our revised budgets. So this is I'll begin with our smaller funds, our food service fund, our community service fund, and our debt service fund. So this was the preliminary budget fund that we approved, or the board approved. I did not approve it, the board approved in June. We had a food service, we had revenue of $1.9 million, expenses of $1.9 million, and a slight decrease of about $37,000, almost $38,000 in food service. Community service fund, we had $2.3 million, $2.2 million in expenses, and an increase of about $100,000 in fund balance. In the debt service fund, we had about $5.1 million in revenue, $5.2 million in expenses, and a decrease of about almost $78,000 decrease in fund balance. So in the revised fund balance, after updates and revisions, the food service fund has a little bit of an increase in fund balance, just a slight decrease in the revenue, slight decrease in expenses, but it changes into an increase in the fund balance. Community service, we've got an increase in both revenue and expenses, but doesn't change the fund balance very much there. And in debt service, I was missing a line of state aid there, so we have a slight change there in the debt service revenue. So it changes that fund balance quite a bit there to a $65,000 increase in fund balance. So estimating increases in all three fund balances there, that just changes. So we've got the actual fund balances now for food service, we can see from FY 22. And then putting that change in there gives us what we're estimating for FY 23. So we're going to see some nice healthy fund balances in food service, community service, and debt service in those three funds. So on the general fund, which is the fund that everybody likes to talk about anyway. When we talked about our budget adjustments for FY '24, we had a lot of adjustments for FY '23. If you remember, we talked about unfilled positions in FY '23. So we had $899,000 we talked about for our adjustments. $483,000 of those were actually in the current year that we're in for the unfilled positions. And then $416,000 of those were in FY '24. So you're gonna hear me talk about that quite a bit. So that plays a major role in what our fund balance is gonna look like in this year. Are you following me? Okay. Yep. So we've got $483,000 that we're gonna take out of our fund balance, or add to our fund balance in FY '23 that we considered adjustments for next year. Our enrollment, we're not gonna change it. The enrollment we used for our preliminary budget was 3,295, keeping that the same. We're showing a reduction in title funds that we didn't know of last year when we set this budget. We're showing an increase in compensatory funds that we did not know last year. We had our ARPA county funds, which were CARES funds, and those were used for CTE funds. And we actually had some additional CARES funds that we didn't know of last year as well. But we also had some large increases in contracts. So we're gonna see some increases in revenue, we're gonna see some increases in expenditures.
Robin, I'll just clarify one thing. It's been a while since we spoke of this, and we have 3 new board members, but in the spring of last year, the county commissioners made a decision to provide the county schools with money from their ARP funds. So their money for the federal COVID relief, they decided to give us money, and North Branch and Rush City, and they designated that could only be used for career tech ed programs. And so that's what we did with it. We worked with the teachers in those departments and said, what are the things that you're going to need to enhance the student's experience? And we spent the money on that. So when we received that money, it was kind of an in and out. Here's your money, spend it on CTE. And so it didn't come into our, our overall budget picture necessarily, and it had to be used for CTE and couldn't be used for other purposes. So just so you're aware of that. If people are wondering, why didn't we use the money for something else? That's what the county commissioners designated that money for, and that's what we spent it on.
It was about $228,000.
Is that a one-time?
Yes.
Yes.
And so that's why, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, that's where we had a lot of assumptions and estimates at the beginning of the year in June when we set these budgets. This is something we didn't know about. So that's why we did a bunch of revisions at this point to the year to bring it more to actual.
And a lot of times that equipment and those types of things that are used in CTE, there's all kinds of funds that they do to try to raise the money in order to purchase something. It'd be kind of neat to have the tech guys and the other people, gals that in the ag department and wherever those places were, to see what they purchased with it. It would be kind of interesting to see that. Because that's a sizable amount of money. It really benefited what we call South High there, so.
Yeah, and it was for both middle school and high school, so there were a lot of different.
Well, yeah, I was actually stopping in today and they were working, they're seeing a new CNC machine.
Yep.
At the middle school. I know they were receiving some training as part of those funds.
That's a good idea, though. We have a huge Google Doc keeping track of everything that they're purchasing, so I'm just gonna make a note of that. So, and again, we didn't know the reduction in title funds when we were presenting the budget to the board last year, so that was a reduction of about $87,000. We didn't know we were gonna have an increase in compensatory funds, so these are just kind of the things that we, with the revised budget, that we kind of shake that out at this point. And then increase in some of the salaries and benefits with the contracts that came in higher when we settled those. So moving on in the general fund then, so our preliminary budget, we were at $43.3 million for revenue. In the revised budget, we're increasing that to 43.5, an increase of about $261,000. And that's that increase in compensatory, the ARPA, the decrease in title, so it kind of goes up and down and nets out to around that $261,000. Then on the expenditure side, we were at 42.9 preliminary, with the revised budget at 43.3, with an increase of about 383,000, and that's that decrease of the unfilled positions, but then the increase in the contract. So, up and down on all of that as well. So then looking at what we believe our fund balances are going to end up at the end of this year, of course, estimated again, but we can show the actual. We ended last year with an unassigned fund balance of just a little over $2 million in the unassigned. We're gonna see a change of just a little under, about $975,000, just at that $2.9 million. So there, we're gonna see that increase. We had talked about keeping it at 2 million during our budget adjustments, because we're gonna bring it down then in that FY24. Because we're gonna, because we're spending it down again. And you'll see that again when I bring that preliminary FY24 budget.
And Robin, would it maybe be important to point out the reason it's going to come down is because our levy is coming off, and that's about $800,000.
Well, we'll still have it in FY24, Lori.
The following year.
The following year will come
In
out.
FY25 it falls on.
One
Last year's
more year
our
of
last year of that $225 per students, yep. So in the restricted funds, we're gonna see that reduction, and that's gonna be where we're taking off the LTFM and the capital, that's where that's all gonna come down. And we planned that, to spend down our capital and spend down our LTFM on those projects. So we'll end that total general fund balance at $8.3 million. With the primary project in the turf. So the increase in that unassigned is mainly due to the budget adjustments, the unfilled positions, once again, and the balance growth will show in FY23, and then it'll drop back down to that $2 million in FY24. We talked about all during our budget adjustment discussion.
Robin, just to clarify then, I think maybe to Lori's question is, so the coming down, the projected budget at FY24 will be projecting around a $2 million unassigned fund balance. Is that because of increased costs in all areas, basically?
Yeah. Yep. And then we had, and that's when we cut the $899,000 to keep it at that $2 million. One thing I want you to keep in mind that this doesn't take into account a lot of the things that are happening at the legislature right now. Our assumption was the 3% for next year. We'll see. Right now I'm hearing a lot of 4 and 2, but we don't know for sure yet. It doesn't take into account any of the special ed cross subsidy. So I'm keeping my ears and eyes open all the time to see what we're going to do there, but hopefully I'll have a clearer picture by the time I bring that to you in June. So that's what I have for you right now for a revised budget. Not a whole lot of change, but it'll bring us closer to where we'll end this year. So I would just need a motion for the board to approve the revised budget.
Also moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions for Robin?
I just want to give you credit because it seems like you're dealing with not only having to forecast an unknown, but dealing with a moving target anyway. So thanks for your diligence on that.
Thank you. Kind of what we do.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
All right, we have a trio summer school agreement, and we have this every year.
Yes.
Anything we need to speak to specifically about the agreement?
The agreement kind of lays out our partnership with them as they do run their credits through our ALP program because they don't have that program in the summer like we do. So it's a cooperative agreement to support their students in receiving credit over the summer. Annual.
And we enroll our students, we take a portion of the funding. We kind of do the clerk part of it for them.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Josh seconded. We have a motion and a second. Any more questions or discussions about the Trio Wolf Creek Summer School? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Get back to the right spot. We have some grant requests. The first one is a SHIP grant for $2,999 for sensory equipment at Taylor's Falls. Looks like it was put in by our Director of Teaching and Learning, Sarah Schmidt.
There's 2 of them on there. The first one is the Move Mindfully grant, and that is put in by Sarah, and that's for staff training and support for mental health, but also student support for mental health as well. So that's a SHIP grant. So that's the first one. And then the second one is $2,999 for equipment at Taylor's Falls for special needs students who need some larger equipment and supplemental pieces to get around the room and that type of thing. So both of those have been, first brought to Robin and I for approval. We make sure that there's not any technology involved. We look if there's any matching funds that are needed, and then we approve those grants and bring them to you for final approval. So we're recommending approval on both, and thankful for those that filled out the grants and those that are helping provide it. So SHIP is through the county, some granting opportunity.
And I see it's listed as one motion. It's okay to take both grant requests in one motion. Okay, so do we have a motion to accept the grant requests?
I'll make a motion to approve the applications for the grants as listed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions about the grant requests? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign. The grant request passes. Looks like we had some prime food vendor. Let's see, Upper Lakes was awarded the prime vendor for food services. We received one bid. Got the
We
whole-
only had one bid, so. One bidder.
So I wonder who we're gonna take.
I think we're gonna take them.
And what does that do to our less people?
I don't know. Laura just called me and said, I only got one bid.
Not everybody provides.
Yeah, and it's the same vendor that we had last year,
That we
so,
used,
yeah.
used for our food. Okay, so we need a motion and a second to accept Upper Lakes as our vendor for our food services.
I so move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions about that? Or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. That motion passes. Is there any other business that anyone would like to bring at this point? Okay, then I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion.
Need a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.